Hello and welcome back to Mr. Burley Teaches, mini lectures for the AP Environmental Science classroom. Today we're going to be talking about radon, the silent killer. Radon is something that is odorless, colorless, but it could definitely kill you. And it's something that many of us have in our homes and we need to be aware of, particularly when we're buying a home. You want to know if the home, especially the basement, has high levels of radon. Radon is a radioactive element. As you can see, periodic table is number 86 on the periodic table. It is a gas, and again it is colorless and odorless and quite dangerous. And what makes it dangerous is its property of being radioactive. If we look at this table here, which shows the radioactive decay of uranium, which is where radon starts. Uranium can be found in bedrock, and after a long time will start to break down. However, after that initial radioactive decay, it doesn't take too long for the decay to get to radon, right, 222. So uranium is our parent material found in the bedrock, and what's going to happen is it'll start to decay all the way down to radon. And radon has a short half-life, only about 4 days, a little over 3.5 days. However, if that builds up in your basement and you're breathing in that radon, because it has such a short half-life, it's going to radioactively decay and release an alpha particle inside your lungs, and that's where the danger happens. So if we take a look here at this model, if radon gas is in our basement or in our house, you breathe it in, it's going to get deposited in your lungs. After 3.5 days, if it's still there, an alpha particle will decay and literally shoot off, and if that alpha particle nicks a DNA, it could damage the DNA and cause a mutation, and we're talking about cancer. Okay, damage to DNA and the effects and results of damaged DNA can lead to tumors and lung cancer. So that's what we're dealing with here with radon. Because it is odorless and colorless, it's difficult to detect, but radon is one of the country's deadliest carcinogens. 21,000 deaths per year, which is more than drunk driving and a lot more than drowning or house fires. In this part of the country, we are particularly prone to radon because the bedrock does have uranium. So if you look here at the areas in the country that have high potential, Pennsylvania is one of those states. So when you go to buy a home, or even if you've been living in your home for a long time and you utilize the basement, you want to know if your basement has high levels of radon. This is a nice little diagram here that shows how radon can enter your home, and we're talking about fractured bedrock that has uranium inside of it, and as that uranium decays, it would decay into a byproduct, radon, which is a gas. So that gas is going to seep up through the pore space within the soil, and if there are places that it can get into your house, like a sump pump, or maybe just areas in your house that aren't sealed correctly, cracks in your foundation. It could even get in your well water and travel up and come out of your shower. Any radon that seeps out of the ground and into the atmosphere, the outdoor air, is basically harmless because it's going to float away and not become a problem. What we're worried about is when it gets into your basement, which is a sealed airspace. They call it a trap. If that's a poorly ventilated area, even if it's a finished basement, you might not have windows down there, or those windows are constantly closed. The door that goes down to your basement is constantly closed. That airspace is just literally accumulating radon, and when you go down there to relax or do whatever you're doing in your basement, you're breathing that in. 4 days later, it decays inside your lungs. Okay, so here's our model, and you might want to sketch this in your notes so that you have a note on radon. If you haven't been taking notes already, you want to get some of this down so that when it comes test time, you have some materials to study. And radon, we can start here by drawing a little house here in the ground level, and our basement is mostly underground. You want to know that radon is a colorless, odorless gas, and it is also a carcinogen. And this is going to lead to things like lung cancer. Where it's going to get into our house? Okay, the daughter product of natural decay of uranium is radon. Okay, so the little blue bubbles down here are uranium, As that decays, it'll go through a series of daughter products until it eventually gets to radon, which, if there are cracks in your foundation, in my house I have a hole where a sump pump goes. So if I ever have water in my basement, I put my sump pump in that hole, and the water will collect in that hole, and I can pump it out of a window. So that sump pump is literally exposed to the soil. There's just ground on the bottom of my sump pump. So that's a place where there's a direct avenue for radon to come into my home. But most people have cracks in their foundation. It's very common as concrete and foundations settle. There's small, tiny little cracks and fractures where radon gas can get in. And then once that radon gets in your basement, which is poorly sealed. Now, in my basement, and you can think about yours, I have windows, but I seal those windows shut. I do not want any cold air getting in the wintertime. I do not want any warm air getting out in the summertime. I want my windows to be sealed so I'm not costing myself money in heating and cooling costs. So my basement is a closed system. We call that a trap. So if and when this radon seeps into our basement and starts to accumulate, and you walk down here and start to breathe, that's where you're being exposed to high radon levels if you have them. Alright, the second and third floor of your home is really never a threat because there's so much ventilation between the outside and the inside. Alright, you're going in and out of your front door, you're using your garage, you're opening your garage door. There's ventilation and air movement on your first and second floors, so it's not usually a problem. So what are the solutions? Well, the first thing is you need to find out if you actually do have high radon levels in your home. So when you bought your house, you may have had a radon test. All right, and if you're in the process of buying a home, a radon test is something that you want to do. They're somewhere in between $15 and $75, and in my opinion, that's money well spent because you want to know what you're buying. And if you are buying a house and it does come back that there are high radon levels, you don't have to run away. There's things you can do. You can have the seller, or you yourself can install a radon remediation system, which is about $1,000. My home, I put in a test in the summer, the fall, the winter, and the spring. I did a 4-season test. I did 4 separate tests, and it determined that I do have high levels of radon in my basement. So I'm going to need a remediation system, and you can watch this and see if you have one. A remediation system is literally digging a hole in your foundation, and that hole is connected to a pipe. Alright, and then on the outside of your home somewhere, there's like a little fan structure with a pipe that goes up along the side of your house, and it sort of looks like a gutter system or just a PVC pipe. But what that's going to do is, instead of radon going into your house, it's more or less going to get focused here, because inside that little, it's like a little circular enclosure, there's a little fan, and that fan is always going. So what it's going to do is suck the radon over toward this pipe. Let's go with yellow for the radon, and then up and out of the pipe harmlessly into the environment, instead of it accumulating into your basement. So it's literally going to draw air out of your basement, and that air is going to contain the radon. And you have your pipe real high up, more or less around your roof line. You don't want animals scurrying this and getting down in here. You don't want rain getting in here. Sometimes they have like a little cover over here, but you want it high up so that it's going out into the atmosphere, not at ground level where people are breathing, or animals can get in it. So those systems cost about $1,000, and they're money well spent because the alternative is high radon levels in your basement, constantly being exposed to a carcinogen. Right? And the last thing you can do, if you have to, make sure the cracks in your foundation are sealed. Right? And then that prevents any of the gas leakage into your home. So just to nail this home, it's about 1 home in 15 is estimated to have radon levels at or above the EPA action level, 4.0 picocuries per liter. And this is kind of fascinating stuff if you look at the unit of measurement for radon. A curie is a unit of measurement for radioactivity, which is somewhat appropriate because the curies basically discovered X-rays and things like radon, and then had lung cancer. So just to put things into perspective, 1 curie is equal to 3.7 times 10 to the 10 disintegrations. So that's radioactive decays per second. So if you're following along here, 370 million disintegrations per second is equal to 1 Curie. So can you imagine how dangerous, how radioactive something has to be to have 370 million decays, disintegrations in 1 second? That's some pretty unbelievable stuff if you think about it. Now, what we're working with is radon. The EPA action level, right? That's what they're saying. If you have those levels, 4.0 picocuries per liter, that warrants remediation. Okay, that's their recommendation. That's their suggestion. So what a picocurie means? All right, pico is trillion. So we're working with picocuries per liter. Their action level, where they're warranting remediation, is 4 picocuries. So you're talking about a trillionth of a curie. Okay, so now just to put it into perspective, their action level is 4 picocuries, which is about 2.22 disintegrations per minute. All right, which equates to 12,672 radioactive disintegrations per day. So that's their recommendation, where they warrant remediation at 4 picocuries. So just give you a little sense of the units of measurement here. All right, there's 2 types of tests. This is the one that I did in my house. These are very cheap. I got mine for free from the American Lung Association, and I might have some in the classroom. So if you ask me and you do utilize your basement and you want to have a free test, I might have some left over that you can do. And it's literally just a little envelope. This is the piece of cardboard that comes in there that tells you a little bit about the test. But here's the piece of cardboard that you literally fill out. Here's the information you fill out with your name, address, and you record the time and the day and the day of the month that you hang this thing in your basement at about the height that you would breathe. And then on the other side, which is hidden, you record when you stopped your test. And inside this thing is a little carbon filter, which basically traps some of the air and the bubbles in there, and the radon gets trapped in there too. And you send this back, you literally seal it. There's a little piece of glue here. You seal it and you send it in just like that, and the EPA will analyze your sample and shoot you an email and let you know your levels of radon. And like I said, I did this 4 times in 1 year, and mine came back high. So I believe it. I believe this test, even though it was free. And there's some cheap ones. They're around $10 to $15 at Home Depot. I wanted to know. And when you go to buy your house, when I was selling my house, the house I used to live in, the buyers wanted a radon test, and they had one of these tests in my basement for 3 days. This is called a continuous radiation monitor, and all that means is it continues to take readings. I think it's every 5 seconds. It'll take a reading every 5 seconds, and it records the levels of radon, and then it spits out a report. And you can use this style as well, the continuous radon monitor. Whatever you do, you want to know the radon levels in your home, because you want to know if you need to install a remediation system, which looks like this. You might have one of these on the side of your house. You can ask your parents if they know anything about the levels of radon in your home. You want to be concerned if your home is older and may have a lot of cracks in the foundation. Some of us live in old stone farmhouses where there's dirt floors. However, you also have to think about how often are you down there. Do you spend a lot of time in your basement? If you do, and you have a fully finished basement like mine, and I'm raising 2 kids, and we watch movies in your basement, things like that, or if you have sleepovers, you want to know a little bit about the levels of radon. And this is what a remediation system looks like. And here's one installed on a home. There's the little fan thing that just literally sucks air up and out into the atmosphere, harmlessly away from us. So that's a little bit about radon, and that's more or less a nice basic understanding. There are questions about radon on the AP environmental exam, and after watching this lecture, taking a note and reviewing it and asking your parents about your own personal home, I feel you're more than equipped to answer any questions correctly that they might have for you about radon, the radioactive silent killer.